Class of 2026, you are surrounded, and we should not take that for granted, by family, friends, and now mentors and teachers who are vested in your success. I particularly want to welcome our families. For most of the class of 2026, your families are the reason you are here. They have instilled in you a love of education and science, and qualities of compassion and empathy that have led you to choose the profession of medicine. They've nurtured you, encouraged your aspirations, challenged you to reach higher, and supported you when the reach seemed impossible. Many have immigrated or worked long hours to make it possible for you to be here. 9 of you are the first in your families to achieve a college education. Your families represent cultures from across the country and the world. 27 of you were born outside the United States, in many different countries: Canada, China, Ethiopia, Ghana, Hong Kong, India, Iran, Italy, Jamaica, Japan, Korea, Nigeria, Poland, Russia, Senegal, Sierra Leone, South Africa, Syria, Taiwan, and Vietnam. You graduated from 60 undergraduate colleges, and the 104 of you were selected from among more than 5,100 applicants to the school. These are the numbers. Over the coming months and years, I look forward to getting to know each of you, not as a number, but as a person. And I encourage you to take the time to learn each other's stories. As you embark on this profession of medicine, it is important that we pause today to reflect on the commitment that you are making. In a short while, you will don a white coat. In the latter part of the 19th and early 20th centuries, the white coat came to symbolize the importance of science in medicine. It has also come to symbolize professionalism and humanitarian ideals. At the end of this ceremony, you will recite a white coat pledge stating your commitment as members of this community to foster the growth, well-being, and dignity of all. When you graduate, you will recite a physician's oath, a commitment to the respect of persons, acknowledging the dignity of the individual patient is fundamental to our profession and supersedes all other ideologies. I hope that these values and commitment will anchor you as you learn and practice medicine in a changing world. Just as you learn each other's stories, please learn the stories of your patients so that you will always see them as individuals. Curiosity is the element common to the scientific and the humanistic groundworks of medicine symbolized by the white coat. During your medical career, you will come to understand that the best way to care for the human beings who are your patients is to learn the basic underpinnings of disease and to discover mechanisms when we are only dealing with assumptions. You will learn that the best of intentions without knowledge can cause harm. And conversely, you will understand that science and medicine practiced without regard for ethics underlies some of the most heinous events of the 20th and 21st centuries. The Yale system of medical education offers an amazing environment in which you can hone your curiosity. The fundamental element of the system is the concept that medical students, you, are mature individuals motivated to learn, requiring guidance and stimulation rather than compulsion or competition for relative standing in a group. As a student in the Yale system, you may learn from a Nobel laureate or the Howard Hughes investigator down the hall, the master clinician in the hospital, the health advisor to the President of the United States or the governor, the scholar of literature or history across campus, from your patients and from each other. Learning this way is not easy, but through the process, you will learn how to learn and how to apply concepts to new problems, to the new diseases you will see, to the application of new diagnostic tools or novel therapies throughout your career. You will also discover joy in learning and caring for your patients. Our commitment to you today is that we will set the bar high, but we will help you to reach it. Our commitment to you is that you are not alone. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me or any of us for advice or guidance. Let me say that again. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me or any of us for advice and guidance. You will teach us and you will bring us joy. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Jessica Luzzi, Deputy Dean for Education, to the podium. Dr. Luzzi has been Deputy Dean for Education since 2021, January of 2021. But prior to that, she was very active in medical education, serving as the director of the advanced training period for the MD program and a leader in maternal medicine. Dr. Luzzi is the Harold W. Jockers Professor of Medical Education, as well as a Professor of OB/GYN and Reproductive Sciences. Dr. Luzzi.
Thank you, Dean Brown. I want to thank and introduce the Yale School of Medicine faculty and medical education leaders who are joining us on this stage today. They will be assisting you don your white coats later in the ceremony, and I know they will be assisting all of you throughout your entire medical education. First, Dr. Sarvit Chowdhury, you can wave. Dr. Chowdhury, along with Dr. Herzog, is an Associate Dean for Student Research. Dr. Chowdhury is also Professor of Medicine and co-director of the National Clinical Scholars Program. She first came to the Yale School of Medicine in 2001 for the Robert Wood Johnson Clinical Scholars Program. Next, Dr. Darren Lattimore. Dr. Lattimore is Yale School of Medicine's Deputy Dean for Diversity and Inclusion and Chief Diversity Officer. As part of these school-wide responsibilities, he plays an active role with the student-focused Office of Diversity, Inclusion, Community Engagement, and Equity, also known as DICE. He is an Associate Professor of Internal Medicine. Next, Dr. Michael Schwartz. Dr. Schwartz serves as an Associate Dean for our curriculum, and since July 2021 has been the inaugural Director of Innovation in Medical Education. Dr. Schwartz is also an Emeritus Associate Professor and Senior Research Scientist in Neuroscience. Next, I have Dr. John Francis. Dr. Francis has been our Associate Dean for Student Affairs since November 2021. So you are the first class who will benefit from his thoughtful leadership right from the beginning of medical school. Dr. Francis, however, is not new to Yale. He was an intern and resident in internal medicine at Yale New Haven Hospital, and during the course of his early career, spent 8 years at Yale as a faculty member, as well as a student advisor. I think we'll wait to introduce Dr. Lee. And at the end, we have Dr. Ment. Many of you have already met Dr. Laura Ment, our Associate Dean for Admissions and Financial Aid. She is also director of the START program, so some of you have had the opportunity to spend time with her in that context over the summer. Additionally, she is a professor of pediatric neurology. There are other associate deans that you will meet after this day, but like Dr. Dean Brown said, we are always here to help you through this process. Now I'll ask Dean Brown to introduce Dr. Lee.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to introduce this year's guest speaker, Dr. Alfred Lee. Dr. Lee was once sitting in your place. He received his MD, PhD from Yale School of Medicine in 2004. After graduating from Yale, Dr. Lee completed a residency in internal medicine at Brigham and Women's Hospital, where he served as chief medical resident, followed by a fellowship in hematology-oncology at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. He is now professor of medicine, hematology, and program director for the Heme-Onc Fellowship Program. Dr. Lee's primary academic interests are classical hematology, thrombosis, and medical education. The many teaching honors he has received reflects how deeply he cares about medical education. These honors include the Charles W. Baum-Falk Prize for Teaching in the Basic Sciences, the Leah M. Lowenstein Award for Excellence in the Promotion of Humane and Egalitarian Medical Education, the Yale Cancer Center Award for Mentorship Excellence, the Fred Cantor Teacher of the Year Award, as well as the Faculty Teacher of the Year Award from Internal Medicine Traditional Residency Program, the Inspiring Yale Award from the Yale University Graduate and Professional Student Senate, and on many occasions, the David S. Fisher Annual Award for Outstanding Teaching and Mentoring of Fellows in Hematology from the Yale Cancer Center. On top of these honors, he has been recognized for his outstanding clinical skills, including receiving the David J. Leffel Prize for Clinical Excellence from Yale Medicine. And as one of my colleagues said earlier this afternoon, I just wish I could download Alfred's brain in hematology. Finally, I want to highlight a less official recognition that Dr. Lee received, which shows the important role he has played in trainees' time at Yale. During Capstone, the final course for the MD class of 2022, our students were asked to name the faculty member who had impacted them the most at Yale School of Medicine. When the results were displayed in a word cloud, Dr. Lee's name was the largest, reflecting the significance and extent of his impact. We are very grateful to you for taking time to speak to us today as you begin your training at Yale School of Medicine. Dr. Lee.
Great. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes, it sounds like it. So thank you, Dean Brown, for the overly generous words. Thank you, Dean Aluzzi, Dean Francis, everyone for the opportunity to be here today. So to start, to the class of 2026, congratulations. This is an incredible honor. It's really a great pleasure and honor to be able to officially welcome you to our family here at Yale. This is a family for life. It's also a very diverse and very talented family, as each and every one of you, as you soon will find out, is extraordinary in your own individual and indescribable ways. And I genuinely mean, when I say on behalf of the whole faculty, that all of us very sincerely look forward to a lifetime of friendship, mentorship, and learning with every one of you. As Dean Brown had said 27 years ago, I was actually exactly in your shoes, in almost this exact location on the Harkness lawn. I think we were actually shifted over that way. I'm glad that we moved the event over to here. But you know, in reflecting back, it's amazing to me to think about how much has changed, not only in healthcare and medicine and the world, but also in each of our individual personal journeys. So I want to share a little bit about my story, and I call this a tale of three loves. I'm sorry, I'm kind of crouching down right now because I want to make sure that my voice projects, and I'm a little too tall for the podium. So I grew up in a small town in Texas called Bryan, which is twin cities with another town called College Station, which is best known as the home of Texas A&M University. My father was a pathologist, and my mom was a clinical lab director, and so I basically grew up in this household of medicine. And it turns out that my father was the only pathologist in like a 100 or 200 mile radius of our small hometown in Texas. And so as a result, he became a little bit of a local celebrity because he was always asked to weigh in on forensic cases, and he often appeared like in the local news. So when I was in 5th grade, this is in the days before HIPAA, so excuse what I'm about to say. When I was in 5th grade, my father came to our classroom to conduct these two grand scale anatomic dissections. So these were big local events where basically, he went up in front of the entire 5th grade class, all of my classmates, and there was a bunch of local press and TV crews. And so in one of these events, he dissected a brain, and then the other one he dissected a heart, and then he passed the body parts all around, and everyone was snapping pictures, and it ended up on the front page of the local news. And then also back then, so this is the 1970s, 1980s, there was this really popular TV show called Quincy Medical Examiner. I don't know if anybody remembers that show. So this show was about this forensic pathologist who was kind of nerdy and kind of cool and solved all these murder cases. And so the hospital where my father worked was called St. Joseph Hospital. So as a gift, they bequeathed to him a jacket that said in big bold letters, St. Joseph Quincy on the back of it. And so, I kind of grew up in this fun kind of notoriety, as the son of the local Quincy Medical Examiner. And so with this background, it was always basically preordained by my parents that I, as their firstborn child, would grow up to become a doctor and follow my father in his footsteps. Totally true. So from a very early age, my father exposed me to all these different aspects about being a pathologist. So the family lore, now this story I'm about to say, I don't actually believe it's true, but my cousins say that it is. So the family lore is that when I was 6 or 7 years old, my father pulled out his microscope at home because, all pathologists keep microscopes at home. And then he put a blood smear on it, and he said, Alfred, come here and look in the microscope and tell me what cell this is. And apparently I looked at the microscope, and I said, it's a leukocyte. So I don't believe that story at all. But in high school, this is a very true story. My father, when I was in high school, thought it'd be a great idea for me to assist him with an autopsy. So I remember I was a teenager, and I accompanied him to the morgue, and we drilled open a chest and drilled open the skull and did all these things that you can't do today that I probably shouldn't have done back then either. So anyway, this was my upbringing, and everything I did as a kid was basically designed to put me towards the right track of my preordained path of becoming a physician. Now, in the midst of this, and separate from all this, my parents, like all of their friends and family, decided that I should be exposed to music. So at a young age, they made me take piano lessons, which introduced me to my very first love, which is music. I started playing the piano when I was 5, and I was immediately drawn to it and all of music. I did a ton of music competitions all over Texas and some nationally as well, and I really found something very special in music. But what became inculcated to me along the way was that my sojourn into music was really just a means to an end to get me to a good college so that I could get to a good medical school. So then after high school, I went to college at Stanford. And again, from day one, I was singularly focused on playing my cards right so that I could end up at a good medical school, like Yale, congrats. And so because of this, I joined a basic science lab. And then that brought me to my second love, which is science. I absolutely loved being in the lab. I loved reading the scientific literature. I loved critically dissecting papers. I loved thinking about hypotheses, designing experiments. I just loved the lab culture and the life of being in science. So when it came time for me to apply to medical school, it turns out I actually got waitlisted everywhere, including Yale. But then Yale eventually took me off the wait list. But then by that time, I had decided that I love science so much that I wanted to defer a year and keep doing research at Stanford. So Yale had a deferral policy that essentially they would accept a deferral as long as you could agree that you would definitely matriculate the following year when your deferment was done. So I withdrew from all the other schools I was waiting on, and then in the end I committed to Yale because it ended up being the only medical school that I got accepted into. So it's true. I was actually one of 2 people in my class who answered that on our questionnaire. So there's plenty of us out there. So the year after college, I worked in this lab at Stanford, and then in the summer of 1995, I arrived here in New Haven to begin my first year of medical school. And very quickly, I realized I hated it. I'm serious. I honestly hated medical school when I arrived here. And I'm bearing my soul now, so bear with me here. I liked my classmates. I definitely liked my classmates. I loved the Yale system. That's one of the God's greatest gifts to humankind. But I also saw all the ways that I was different from everyone else, and all the ways that I felt like I didn't quite measure up to the people that I was surrounded by. So for one, all my classmates, they seemed like these really sociable, personable, confident, super cool, interesting, brilliant people. I was really shy. I was very reserved. I felt very awkward in group situations. And I also felt like I didn't really belong in medicine. In my naive worldview at the time, it seemed like medicine was this field that was just full of big egos, and you essentially had to constantly be on display in front of everyone, in front of an audience. And even though I'd had some experience as a stage performer during my years doing music, I still got tremendous stage fright over the thought of having all of my interpersonal skills and clinical acumen on display in front of all my peers, especially since I was much more of a one-on-one kind of person. So, with all of this, I started to bear some resentment towards my parents for kind of pushing me down this path where I didn't feel like I belonged. I quit going to class, and I actually seriously considered leaving medical school. And then it was during my first year here that I came to realize that my very first love all along was actually music, and I probably should have gone to music school instead of medical school. But by that point, my fingers had lost a lot of their dexterity to play the piano, and I kind of felt that I was, that door had kind of closed. So I turned to my second love, which was science, and I decided to apply to the MD-PhD program here. So my first year as a medical student, I applied as an to the MD-PhD program, and I didn't get in. And then my second year, I applied and I got in, and then I got funding from the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, and then I spent the next 5 years doing my PhD in the Department of Immunobiology here. So I started graduate school, and I was so pleased that I had finally taken control over my own destiny, and I was doing something that I decided and I felt like I should be doing. And you know what? It just didn't feel right. It turns out I wasn't very good at lab work after all. I was kind of a sloppy investigator, and I often had to repeat experiments. And my PhD ended up taking about a year longer than I had hoped. And then I also had a number of personal struggles during graduate school. I came out to my parents, which really did not go over well at the time at all. And then in 2002, my father ended up passing away from head and neck cancer, and that was right around the time that I was finishing graduate school. So when I finally completed my graduate studies and was due to start medical school clerkships, I was absolutely dreading it. I really had no idea what I should do with my life in the big picture. I thought again about dropping out of medical school. And then, lo and behold, I started my clinical clerkships, and I loved them. I honestly, sincerely loved each and every single one of my clerkships. Through the clerkship experiences, what I realized was that being a physician and caring for patients, it was not about being on display. It was not about being on stage. It wasn't about celebrating oneself. In fact, the concept of I or of me didn't even enter the equation at all. Being a physician, what I learned, was about the patient. It was about focusing all of your energy, your attention, and your effort on the patient in front of you, listening to them, helping to care for them, and providing healing for them in a way that others in their lives didn't have agency or access to. Being a physician, I learned, was about establishing a one-on-one connection with another individual who's in need, hearing them, letting them feel heard, and acting on their behalf for their betterment. So I went on to do my residency training in internal medicine up in Boston, and then stayed there to do my fellowship training in hematology and oncology, and I loved all of it. And then it was during my residency training that I actually discovered my third love, which is the one that became my real love in the end that I've carried through over to this very day, which is teaching. I love the sense of wonder that's created when there's teaching at the bedside or in the classroom or anywhere, for that matter. I love building relationships with students, with trainees, with other faculty, all of us sharing our knowledge and trying to better one another in order to better the patient. And so in 2011, when I finished my fellowship training, I came back to Yale for my first faculty job, which had a heavy component of teaching, and I've literally been living the dream as a clinician educator here ever since. All right, so I just shared with you my story, which is a positive one overall, but there are clearly lots of ups and downs along the way. And so why did I share this with you? It's because you're about to meet the most amazing people you've ever met in your entire life. And it's going to look as though they literally roll out of bed just looking and feeling and being amazing effortlessly. The only person who's like that is Dean Brown. Actually, Dean and Lucy and all the other deans are like that too, so that's why they're deans. But for the rest of us, we've all had our struggles. Everyone here has a story to tell, and everyone here has been exactly where you're at. All of us have had to work very hard. We've had to rely on others for support. And in some cases like mine, it's taken a long time to figure out what our path should be. This is all part of the process of learning and developing and growing to become the very best physician you can possibly be. We've all been through it, and we're here to help and guide and support you every single step of the way, and I mean that genuinely. Now, for me, there's a happy epilogue in the end, which is that over the last many years, I've actually been able to marry a lot of the things that I love together and reconcile some sore points from my past. So for one, before my father died, I spent many nights at the computer workrooms in the School of Music writing a choral piece. So this is one of the most amazing things at Yale, that we have access to this kind of stuff. So I was able to finish and dedicate the composition to him before he passed away, and then that piece I eventually got copyrighted, and so now it appears as this fun little quirk on my CV that's sort of an homage to this life that I never had, but that still gives me some type of joy every day. Another thing, I mentioned that Yale was the only school that I got accepted into, and for a while I honestly felt a bit of an inferiority complex because of that. But I later learned why, in a cosmic sense, that had to be. Because in 1996, in the spring of my first year as a medical student, I met the love of my life, a man named Eric Andrusen, who at the time was this incredibly popular hairdresser. He did all these hair shows and cut hair for tons of Yale students. That's how we met. He still cuts my hair now. But so, we've been together now for 26 years, and which is more than half of my lifetime. And nothing meaningful ever happens in my life without him as the central and most important part of it. And then finally, in 2020, the COVID pandemic hit. And when the pandemic arrived, our institution, under Dean Brown's leadership, completely reorganized itself. And so all of us in healthcare had to immediately step up, define ourselves, and do our part to shoulder the world's burden. So, as mentioned earlier, I'm a hematologist, and my particular area of clinical and research focus is thrombosis, which is otherwise known as blood clotting. And so, as many of you all may know, COVID-19 is associated with an increased risk of thrombosis. So, when the pandemic arrived here, I actually found myself harking back to my roots as a scientist, but this time on the clinical and translational end, where a group of us as clinicians and basic scientists collaborated together intensely and studied multiple aspects of thrombosis, effectively bringing me right back to the lab. I've been very privileged to have 3 loves in my professional life, all of which have finally come together, merged into one, which is the love of being a doctor. And my hope for you is that all of you will find what you love as well, and that as part of that process, you'll take advantage of every single opportunity available here, because all of these experiences will make you a better doctor, and they'll make you a better person. This is an incredibly exciting time to be in medicine. The therapeutic advances that have catapulted in every field are beyond what anyone at any point in human history could ever have imagined in the past. In medical oncology, the treatments that we're giving now, immunotherapy, targeted therapies, CAR T-cell therapies, these have completely revolutionized cancer care, so that diseases that used to be fatal are now completely manageable and sometimes even curable. In hematology as well, chronic diseases like sickle cell disease, which were long ignored, are finally being given their time in the sun and are experiencing a renaissance of new therapies, including gene therapy, which promises to cure the disease. At the same time, our medical system is plagued by immeasurable health inequities and health disparities, both in the US and globally. The most innovative and cutting-edge therapies that I just mentioned, they're out of reach for the vast majority of people in the world, especially under-resourced patients who are underprivileged and from underprivileged backgrounds, as nearly 10% of the US population doesn't have health insurance. And of course, we can acknowledge that right now our entire society is in the midst of a massive culture war. It's affecting every sector of healthcare, society, and also the health workplace, as topics such as diversity, equity, and inclusion necessarily come to the forefront and force us to reckon with our own shadows. So there's never been a more exciting time to be in medicine, but there's also never been a more important time to be in medicine. You all have arrived here with a reason, which is to embrace all of these challenges and transform them to benefit all patients everywhere, that scientific progress will continue to move forward while we expand access to cutting-edge therapies so that all individuals, regardless of their background, their financial means, their skin color, cultural identity, sexual identity, or beliefs, may benefit equally. Many of you will carry out this mission in the clinic, providing the best possible care to your patients. Some of you will find your home in the lab, making new discoveries to push the fields of science and medicine forward. And then for others, your home may be in government, policy, pharmaceuticals, global health, business, the classroom, maybe some combination of all these, or maybe something else entirely. Whatever your interest is, there is a need and a home for you as a doctor. So take this charge, find what you love, and welcome to this most amazing life mission and our most amazing lifelong family. Congratulations.
That is just a sample of what awaits you. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call upon Dr. John Francis, Associate Dean for Student Affairs, who will introduce the class of 2026. When he calls your name, please rise and come to the stage where a Yale School of Medicine faculty member will help you don your white coat. We will take a photo together, and then AYAM Executive Committee President Dr. Mac Griffiths will distribute the stethoscopes before you return to your seat. And this is a wonderful tradition in our school, a way of giving down the generations. So we will commence.
I'm feeling a lot of positive vibes in here and a lot of excitement. And look out, I also see a lot of love and a lot of support in the back. So thank you, Dean Brown, and good evening to everyone. So as Dean Brown mentioned, the plan for officially receiving your white coats will proceed by me calling your names alphabetically by your last name. And when I announce your name, please come up on stage on the left for your white coat, then pose for a photograph with Dean Brown. Be sure to look at the camera and smile. After the photograph, by tradition, you will be handed your stethoscope donated by the Association of Yale Alumni in Medicine. After receiving your stethoscope, continue back to your seat by exiting on stage right. And inside the box of your stethoscope, you're going to find a thank you note card to the actual alumni who donated your stethoscope to you. We highly recommend that you write a brief thank you note to thank that alum. And then after you've done that, you can bring that up eventually to the second floor of Harkness, to the Student Affairs office, and we have a basket where you can put that note there, and we'll mail it out on your behalf. Finally, I ask that you hold your applause till all the students have received their white coats, so that we all can collectively applaud for you and recognize the Yale School of Medicine class of 2026. Let's begin. Bashar Ahmad from Wayne State University. Olomapasi Akinshotu from Columbia University. Joseph Alavi from the University of California at Berkeley, entering the MD-PhD program. William Allen from Baldwin College. Matthew Anderson from the University of Pennsylvania. Adith Arun from Johns Hopkins University. Tanvi Bonota from Rutgers University, entering the MD-PhD program. Fatima Basser from Smith College. Selma Belkacem from Georgia State University. Rose Bender from Yale University. Caroline Borden from Yale University. Morgan Brinker from Brown University. Agnieszka Brojakowska from Skidmore College, entering the MD-PhD program. Sadhil Chadha from the University of California at Berkeley. Wayne Chang from Washington University in St. Louis. Karthik Chetlapalli from the University of Southern California. He Young Chue from University of California, San Diego. Andrew Craver from the University of Virginia. Mark Dibbeth from Yale University. Alyssa Dion from Cornell University. Gabriela Esniola from Yale University. Kyle Brennan Feliciano from Stanford University was unable to attend today, but we want to acknowledge his presence in the class. Julia Fu from the University of Michigan. Jordan Galbraith from Vanderbilt University, entering the MD-PhD program. Jay Gandhi from Columbia University, entering the MD-PhD program. Raul Garcia Rosario from the University of Puerto Rico, entering the MD-PhD program. Alexandra Golas from the University of Pennsylvania. Sarah Ho from Columbia University. Helia Hosseini from Islamic Azad University. Lanique Huggins from Duke University. Adiska Handito from the University of Maryland. Amina Iqbal from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Kavita Israni Winger from the University of Toronto. Jasmine Jiang from Vanderbilt University. William Jiang from The Ohio State University. Tibin John from Kalamazoo College. Schaefer Jones from Sewanee, the University of the South. Abigail Judge from Duke University. Matthew Kanzler from Syracuse University. Pavan Khosla from Hunter College. Lucas Kim from Yale University. Trevon Klug from Cal Poly State University. Derek Knight from Bucknell University. Eliana Knight from Stanford University. Alejandro Cochin from Boston University. Victoria Kong from Rice University. Kirsten Lally from Colgate University. Allison Law from Harvard University, entering the MD PhD program. Linda Lynn from Swarthmore College, entering the MD PhD program. Tiger Lin from Johns Hopkins University. Angela Luo from Columbia University. Davish Malik from University of Pittsburgh. Hannah May from Columbia University. Michelle Moline from the University of Pennsylvania, entering the MD PhD program. Sadeh Mohammed from Columbia University. Jake Muscarelli from Georgetown University. Sean Mullane from Stanford University. Tolawani Odu from Howard University. Ifunanya Okeke from Scripps College. Guillermo Ornelas from the University of Texas at El Paso. Bismarck Ousu Frimpon from Stony Brook, entering the MD PhD program. Timothy Paris from South Dakota State University, entering the MD PhD program. Darian Paris from the University of Waterloo. Claire Perry from the University of Chicago. Kelly Peterick from Dartmouth College. An Fu from the University of California, Berkeley, entering the MD PhD program. Thomas Pointer, Yale University. Matthew Ponticello from Cornell University, entering the MD-PhD program. Adriana Purcell from the University of Pennsylvania, entering the MD-PhD program. Emily Chen from the University of Connecticut. Omar Qureshi from Yale University. Eva Rest from Georgetown University, entering the MD-PhD program. Reese Richmond from the University of Southern California. Matteo Rosati from Yale University. Conrad Safranek from Stanford University. Andrew Salib from Cornell University. Joshua Sanchez from Northwestern University. Anna Savan from Michigan State University, entering the MD-PhD program. Kira Seiger from Mount Holyoke College. Ariel Shabi Rosen from McGill University. Anne Elizabeth Sidaman Aristoff from Princeton University, entering the MD-PhD program. Emily Siratich from the University of Toronto. Julian Smith Vuderis from McGill University. Julia Stevenson from Dartmouth College was unable to attend the ceremony today, but we want to acknowledge her presence in the class. Elena Strauss from the University of California, Berkeley. George Sun from the University of Washington. Wilton Sun from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. Ryan Sutherland from Emory University. Krisa Sai from the University of Chicago, entering the MD-PhD program. Winston Trope from Dartmouth College. Mackenzie Tuttle from Georgia Tech. Christina Waldron from the University of Texas at Austin. Daniel Wong from Yale University. Ethan Wong from University of Connecticut could not attend the ceremony today, but we wanted to acknowledge his presence in the class. Christopher Weaver from MIT. Nicholas Wells from Wesleyan University. Ulana Wilson from the University of Illinois, entering the MD-PhD program. Caitlin Zhang from Rice University cannot obtain the actual ceremony this evening. We wanted to acknowledge her presence. And now Kaylin Yao from Brown University. Grant Young from Yale University. Catherine Yu from Duke University. Catherine Zahner from Yale University. Shireen Zaytoun from George Mason University. Zoe Zimmerman from the University of Michigan. Now please stand and let us give a warm round of applause for the Yale School of Medicine class of 2026.
Excellent. Oh, actually. So each year, the graduating class at the Yale School of Medicine prepares and recites an oath, as you heard, at commencement, stating their shared principles and ideals as they formally embark into the profession of medicine with their medical degrees. Today, we will recite together the YSM White Coat Pledge as you embark on your medical education journey. The pledge was drafted with the help of YSM students led by Ashwarya Pillai, class of 2023. The pledge is a compilation of commencement oaths from prior YSM classes, the YSM overarching goals and competencies, and principles upheld historically and globally for those entering the profession of medicine. I now would like to ask the class of 2026 to please rise to 25. Some of you will do an extra year, you heard. Please rise and join with me in the White Cloak Pledge. In the tradition, you can say it with me. In the tradition of our predecessors, witnessed by our families, friends, and colleagues, and in service to our future patients, we will make this pledge. We pledge to apply ourselves to developing the foundation of knowledge, skills, and competencies necessary to become exemplary clinicians and scientists dedicated to improving the health of all people. We pledge to support one another in learning, recognizing that the optimal care of patients and the advancement of science and understanding is attained through collaboration and teamwork. We commit to recognize barriers to achieving health equity and to envision ways to reduce those barriers. We pledge to communicate effectively, respectfully, and compassionately, and to conduct ourselves in accordance with professional and ethical standards. We vow to recognize the influence of our biases and to challenge ourselves to provide equitable care for all, including those who hold beliefs that contradict our own. We recognize that our patients will always be our greatest teachers. We pledge to recognize the contributions of others with gratitude when we succeed, learn from our mistakes when we err, acknowledge our own limitations, and seek guidance when we are uncertain. We vow to nurture our own physical and mental health so that we may offer our best selves to our patients, loved ones, and communities. We vow to recognize and respect the time, effort, and dedication of those who teach us, mentor us, and support us in our professional development. We acknowledge the sacrifices made by those around us that enabled us to pursue this profession. With this white coat, we humbly recognize the privileges endowed upon us, as well as the accompanying responsibilities, and we will strive to be worthy of the trust we receive.
Before we adjourn to the reception, I would like to express my appreciation to the people behind the scenes who made today's event possible. Those include Barbara Watts, Acting Director of Admission, Jill Alenti, Deanna Calvert, and Joanne Chetchot in the Office of Student Affairs, Duncan Moore from our Audiovisual Department, Andrew Osborne from the Office of Communications, and our photographer, Anthony DiCarlo. This now concludes our celebration. On behalf of the university and on Yale School of Medicine, I congratulate our newest class of Yale School of Medicine, and we wish you the best in your education and know that you will bring much joy and pride to this school. And finally, just a reminder that everyone in the class of 2026 should now head to the front of 333 Cedar for a class photo before returning to Harkness Lawn for the reception. Congratulations.